Nobody wants to get united. Like, what we gotta do is meet everybody in 149th Street at the bench.
Welcome back to the bench, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm going to give you guys the best one-point perspective tutorial on graffiti. So you're doing graffiti and it comes time for you to start adding a little bit more flair onto your 3D. And you decide, you know what, I'm going to take on the challenge of doing vanishing point perspective. While yes, this does work for general graffiti purposes, this is an extremely watered down version of one-point perspective, and it's actually the cause of a lot of your issues. Now, what's the major difference between vanishing point perspective in graffiti and one-point perspective in pretty much every other art form? Well, vanishing point perspective in graffiti just has you put a dot anywhere on the page you like, and this dot acts as your vanishing point. However, this vanishing point doesn't contextualize the rest of your image, and it's because of just using the vanishing point that graffiti artists have a lower standard as far as characters and backgrounds are concerned. One-point perspective, on the other hand, introduces a horizon line, and this horizon line is what contextualizes the rest of the forms in your image. Now, say we have our horizon line here. This horizon line is what separates the sky from the ground. And this horizon line is always equal to the eye level of the camera that we're viewing from. So if you're laying on the ground, the horizon line goes lower. If you're standing on a ladder, the horizon line goes up. And that's going to be in relation to everything else in your image. Now, the vanishing point is always located on the horizon line. You can put it anywhere you want on the horizon line, but it has to be on the horizon line. Now, in graffiti, we typically do what's called isometric forms. And all that means is our receding lines don't actually converge at a single point. Instead, they're still parallel to one another. So when you're doing typical 3D in graffiti, you don't actually need a vanishing point, but having a horizon line can still contextualize your image, as you can see here. And that's because the form on the top is located above the horizon line, which, remember, is equal with our eye level. And because it's equal with our eye level, we'd be seeing the bottom of this form. We'd have to look up at it. And the opposite is true with objects that are under our eye level. They're below us, so we'd have to look down at those, revealing the tops of those objects. Now you can start to see why a horizon line is so important for graffiti, and graffiti artists tend to overlook this. This is also why when people do backgrounds where their graffiti has 3D that doesn't really abide by the horizon line set by the background, it immediately looks weird. And that's because we realize that we really shouldn't be seeing the top of the form when it's located above that horizon line. So now let's say we wanted to add a perspective instead of using isometric forms. All we have to do is draw some basic squares. If you can do this, you can add perspective to any letter anywhere. Once you got your basic squares, we're going to develop our horizon line right here. Once again, the horizon line can go anywhere you want. The formula stays the same. Now you're going to decide where your vanishing point is going to go. I'm going to go ahead and put mine here. And now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go to every single vertex. And we're going to draw a line from each vertice, and we're going to very lightly go from there to the vanishing point as neatly and as precisely as possible. You'll end up with a little something like this. And from here, you're going to decide where you want the depth of your form to end. Do you want it to end here? Maybe instead you want it to be a little bit thinner. You want it to end there. Or maybe you want it to be larger. You want it to end there. Typically, you don't want your 3D to go all the way to the vanishing point, as the closer you get to this, the more your lines start to fuse together, and the more cluttered this area starts to look, and the more it looks like a focal point. So to avoid that, you generally want to cut the 3D off. Once you've decided your depth, you're going to start to go ahead and solidify your actual form, and you'll be left with something like this. Now you'll notice we'll have some dotted lines back here, and these are called drawn through lines. These are just the lines that we can't see, but we still need to address. That way we know where things line up. We're going to be erasing these dotted lines, so be sure to sketch these very, very lightly. And just to clarify, the reason we can't see these is because this is a solid object, and these lines would be behind the solid form. If this was an open box, let's say, then you would be able to see right inside here, and then these would be the ones that you erase. But once again, for the sake of this tutorial, this is all solid forms, so we wouldn't see these dotted lines. Once you erase that, you'll end up with this, and there you go. You can now do one-point perspective on your graffiti perfectly. But some of you guys might be saying, John, what about letters like S? What about letters like O? How do I do these rounded forms? Well, if you watched my 3D tutorial previously that taught you how to do isometric 3D on your graffiti, then you would know where to locate the apex, which is going to be really, really important for this next step. As you can see, we have ourselves a circle. Once again, you're going to go ahead and pick your vanishing point wherever you want on the horizon line. We'll say the vanishing point is here. And just as I taught from the previous video, you're going to begin your 3D from the apex. And then this time, it's going to go to the vanishing point. You want your 3D to look like this green line, not like this red line. As you can see with this red line, all of this form is unaccounted for, and it distorts the structure as a result. And that's why we go from the apex. Now that you have your two lines receding to the vanishing point, you can go ahead and sketch on top of those to end up with a little something like this. You're going to seal off the two receding lines, and this line right here should replicate this same exact form. If you distort it, then you're going to throw off the actual form itself. All right, now you should know how to do both rounded forms as well as more angular forms. As you can see here, the formula stays the same no matter the letter, right? The same thing as our circle, we go from the apex to the vanishing point. Same thing as our square, we go from the vertex to the vanishing point, so on and so forth. Everything remains true. You decide your depth, then you seal everything off, and you have your finished letter. It's that simple. Guys, check it out. Don't forget, we have the 1 Point Perspective ebook in the description down below. Both a free version, which is a review of this video, and a premium version, which comes with a lot of additional information. So far, we've sold an absolutely ridiculous amount. You guys love these ebooks. So even if it's the free version, definitely don't leave this video without picking one of those up. Now, understand, this concept, this technique of 1 Point Perspective, this formula of doing things, works for every single art form. It doesn't matter what art form you're doing. It works for comic book, realism, anime, doesn't matter. But I want you guys to understand how immense this topic gets and how much larger than graffiti this topic is. Because the more you understand that and the more you realize that, the more you'll be able to use it for more than just graffiti. And the more intricate you'll be able to make your backgrounds. Alright, that pretty much wraps it up. Hopefully that taught you guys how to do proper 1 Point Perspective in your graffiti. If you guys enjoyed today's video, if you guys learned something, let me know in the comments down below. And as always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. I try to get back to as many people as I possibly can. On that note, if you're new here, feel free to subscribe. Become part of the smartest graffiti community online. We have the most informative and the most credible information you can find anywhere online about graffiti. So if you want to make graffiti easier to learn, this is the place you want to do it. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.